Bonjour, everybody. We're going to be working on how to draw faces, like the one you see in front of you. Okay, you probably have grown up drawing faces like this or like this, and we're going to be practicing drawing faces with more realistic proportions, and then we will eventually work our way up to some of these more complex ways of arranging the shapes of a face. We'll start with the basics today. So this, I would say, this face right here is one that you might recognize. It's a little bit like the anime style of drawing faces. When you're doing an anime style drawing, we usually have a pretty basic formula. You know, you have your pointy chin, you have really big eyes, you have an almost invisible nose, and a thin little mouth. And then maybe you have the divot of this part underneath the mouth, and the eyes are usually really wide set, really far apart. And then the pupils are huge, huge. And this can convey innocence. This can be a way of creating characters that are really eye attractive, but they're not exactly the kind of well thought out or well represented faces that we want to take away from a freehand drawing class. So what we're going to learn is some techniques on how to make a more realistic looking face. So on your paper, and using a lighter pencil, you want to just start breaking down your basic shapes of the face. So I like to make the line for the top of the head and the line for the bottom of the chin, it's about 6 inches apart. Okay, and give yourself plenty of space. And then you're going to draw an egg shape. You can press lightly till you get comfortable with a nice symmetrical egg shape. And we know that a chicken's egg is pointier, skinnier down at the bottom than it is at the top. There we go. And there is my first shape. I think I will try to draw with charcoal so that you guys can see it better. I'm just going to press lightly, but you will be using a lighter color or a lighter range of pencil. Okay, so I have the shape of my head. Okay, and then most people think that the eyes are going to be way up here. Like when you draw as a kid, you draw your smiley face, your eyes are way at the top. When in reality, your eyes are about halfway. So that's the halfway point. Okay, then the bottom of your nose is halfway between this line for the eyes and this line for the bottom of the chin. So what's halfway between there? Right about here. You can just, once you make your mark, your guess mark, you can measure that out. Yeah, pretty much exactly. Okay, then I can make a little circle for where my nose is going to be. Bottom of the circle is where the bottom of the nose is going to be. Just a loose, oblong, gestural circle. Okay, and we're not doing anything crazy today. We're just breaking things down into the basic shapes. Okay, and then halfway between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin is where we have the mouth. So that's going to be about here. Right, I can measure that up with my fingers. It's about right. And this isn't exact science. Everybody's going to have things a little bit differently proportioned, but if you can get in that general ballpark, that's where you want to be. Okay, so that's where the middle part of my mouth will be. That's my mouth. And I just did a little bit of an ellipse to kind of get the basic idea of the shape of the mouth. The shape of the mouth is basically like an ellipse. Okay. And I'm just smudging it out because I want to be able to draw with a darker line later. Okay, so for the eyes, where would I put the eyes? You want to draw at about, you want to draw pretty much like a circle right, so that this line, this midline, is going through the middle of this circle. That's not going to be your eye. That's going to be the whole eye socket. Remember in Donnie's drawing how we could see, charcoal on my face. In Donnie's drawing, we could see the sunken in part of the skull's eyes. And I was telling you all, you can like touch the rim of that part of a skeleton, of a skull. That's what this area represents. And that'll make a little bit more sense in a little bit. Okay. And they are going to be pretty much in line with the nose. So I made a line here, and a line there, and then I'm going to make my eyes. The way to do eyes is there are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes across your face. This sounds so weird to say out loud. It's just better to draw it. So we have 1 eye here, 1 eye there, 1 eye here, 1 eye there, 1 eye there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a good way to measure out your face so that it's looking symmetrical, so that everything's the same on both sides. Okay, we would erase those little guideline eyes. I don't have that luxury because I'm working with charcoal, so bear with me. Great, now I have my eyes. And they can be almond shape. They can be a little bit closer to whatever your eyes are shaped like. I just picked a kind of general shape of an eye. And then you have this top part where the eye socket is, right here, where you can draw on your eyebrows. And we're just doing a basic shape, basic contour shapes. So I just did like basically a upside down parentheses, or so the parentheses is like this, now it's like this, so sideways. And then a sideways parentheses above that, and then I just connect. And I connect with a point down here, and I connect with a line right here. Okay, that's the basic shape of the eyebrow. To do the nose, I like to just draw another little sideways parentheses, just a little one. And when you get into your own portraits next week, and we're diving in a little bit deeper, we'll do some practice with noses because they're really difficult. They can be really difficult. They're challenging. But for right now, just try to get the basic shape down so you get the general idea. So we do this sideways parentheses, or a stretched out U, however you want to think about it. So the shape is like that. Okay? And then you're doing these little parentheses around it. Like that. Parentheses and parentheses. And because we did that circle earlier, those guidelines are basically already there for us. Okay? And then there's this little divot between your lip and your nose. That guy right there. And it's also kind of like another parentheses. This one, however, is a little bit more narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. Narrow at the top, wider at the bottom. Almost like a little pear. Or a little teardrop. So we draw our little teardrop there. Okay. Then for the mouth, we can do a little hill and then another little hill. So a little hill and another little hill. Okay, mine's a little lopsided. But then we draw on top of that another hill that mirrors it and another hill that mirrors that. So this hill, these 2 little hills, get 2 more little hills right on top of them. Okay? Then you can either be really distinct and make a distinct line underneath that, so you have that basic mouth, or, and this is generally how we do it in cartoons, so you just draw that little divot. This little divot. And because I've already fleshed out so much with that circle, that's all I'm going to do. And then I have my mouth. Great. And then you can draw 2 little lines for the bridge of the nose. And instead of those being parentheses that go out, those are parentheses that go backwards. And be careful not to go too crazy exaggerating that line. You want them to be pretty subtle in their curvature, because like the curvature of my nose is almost straight. There's just a slight curvature here at the top. And then it goes basically straight. Okay, and then you can fill in your brows. You can draw in the irises, draw in the pupils. Okay, and that's our basic face. Then you can play with things like cheekbones, accentuate the face more. And then for ears, people tend to make ears way too small because they're afraid of making them look way too big. The best way to proportion out your ears is to know that the tops of the ears are in line with the corner of the eye, and the bottom of the ear is in line with the corner of the bottom of the nose. Just like that. Okay? And then ears are silly looking things. They're just something you gotta practice. They're very, like, easy to overdo because you're like, I want it to look like an ear. It has to look like an ear. It has to look like an elephant's ear. It really doesn't. Like if you're looking at my face, you can see there's just kind of this thin little peanut shaped thing right here. It's almost just like another ellipse. And then to get into all the little details and the curves and the little cracks, you don't really see any of that. So I just like to draw an ellipse. A nice stretched out ellipse. Okay? And that's my ear. Then if I want to, you can do hair however you like. I am partial to curly hair because that's what I have. And it's just more fun to draw. And I think you can do these nice, round, big shapes as opposed to trying to draw like hair like this. Just stringy little lines or curly little lines. Okay. You want to try drawing I'll break down hair again over here. So, most times when beginning drawers do hair, they're like, okay, line here, 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 line here. And then that just kind of looks cartoony. And it's very difficult to come back from cartoony when you have these heavy outlines. But if you're drawing the shape of a hair, you don't have, I'll make it not curly for the sake of this exercise. You can draw the general shape of the hair. There's some wave to it. And maybe it's piecey or textured down there. And then ignore that one. And then you can start to draw in some of those. And you wouldn't make it all over the head because that's just not how it looks. You would just do a few choice areas of hair. And if you have dark hair, maybe that is, we'll do half and half. We'll do, this side is dark, this side is light hair. So if I did dark, you can just do your foundation layer of dark pencil or charcoal, and then you can start to bring in the shadows or the lowlights. And really, this is just by looking. But because it's hair, you really can't mess it up. No one's going to look at it. It's just like when you're doing folds on cloth. Like, no one's going to look at it and be like, that's not exactly where that wrinkle was. Same thing with hair. No one's going to be like, well, this dark spot was over here. Why did you draw it over there? It's kind of something you can just practice creating the illusion that there are shadows and that there are highlights, but there's no like perfect answer to that. Yeah, try thinking of hair like cloth. Okay, so that's what it's like if you have dark hair. If you have light hair, you want to consider darkening the background, because that will make the hair pop without having this kind of silly, cartoonish outline. Okay, and then because even if you're looking at someone who has light hair, there's still going to be little shadows. Just like this is a really bright shirt, but I can still see the creases and the shadows. There's still creases and shadows in hair, even if it's straight. So we can create some shaded effects, some really simple, just like this is a long, oh my gosh, I'm getting charcoal on a hot pink shirt. This is a long, distinct shadow, right? So we don't have to go crazy with the shading. We can just do some general lines to express shadow. Okay, and that's just the basic contours, the basic shapes of faces. So I encourage you to get started on your face shape like this.